are. We're on the wrong side of each other, bro. I mean, there you go. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize. Today's delay is completely on me. I was in Merthyr on the bus, and the rain came, and I got trapped. So, what's going on?
That's weird. Oh no, it's just it's weird. Oh, this is new.
What's that?
You can, if I hover my mouse, yeah. Oh, anyways, welcome everyone.
We'll figure it out later.
To the 10K Rum Podcast. My name is Amos Joseph. I'm joined by my co-host Brook Potter, who is late.
Yes. One of the rare times I've actually fucked up. This is great.
Oh, is that a dig at me?
Oh, no. Come on, bro.
Just kidding.
Yes. I do apologize. I got caught in the rain. The bus was delayed. It's just like one fucking problem after the other. And my phone, in typical fashion, dies on me when I'm in Merthyr. So yes, I do take full responsibility for the delay. I didn't get a chance to look at many topics today, so it's going to be interesting. Let's see how long we could go.
we always make time. So
we wing it, bro. Yeah,
of course. Absolutely. Real quick.
Some housekeeping.
Yes, to support the show, of course, we ask everyone to wash their balls. Get some tactical soap at tacticalsoap.com. Use the coupon code 10KRUM to get 10% off. Or check us out at subscribester.com/preachers, where you can support the show directly for as little as $1 or $5 a month, so you can check out our Raw Take series. Yeah. So, what do we want to hit on first?
Where do we begin? That's good. Am I coming through okay? Because I haven't adjusted anything on this side, so I'm hoping people could hear me.
I'm just looking through. I mean, I've been talking to people about different things that's going on.
Have you been following the audit?
Which one?
The one in Arizona?
No. I've honestly been looking at let's see here.
You do know about the audit in Arizona, though?
No. Is it on the election?
They're auditing the election in Maricopa County in Arizona by hand through a number of checks, including to make sure that these things are printed in the right place. And the Democrats are doing everything, and literally mean everything in their power, to stop this audit from happening. In fact, it is so intense. No, the Senate has the right to audit every. I know they have the right
to audit. I'm just thinking, like, you know, I mean, this is basically part of what I talked about with doing our best to improve the election process for the next elections.
Correct. So if and I know YouTube is not very pleased when we discuss such topics. Of course, nobody's going to see this because Google is completely, it's basically blacklisted. You're not going to see anything. You got to go on like gatewaypundit.com. The guy there is kind of heading it up. And even if you try to share the articles, of course, it's not spreading on Facebook or anything like that. But yeah, there are like the guy who's doing it is a company called, Ninja Hackers or Ninja something. And he said, look, we can determine if these, with pretty good specificity, whether these ballots are actually real or not, whether they've been filled in by pen or not, simply by the folds on the paper. So if they shipped in a whole bunch of ballots that were never folded to go into an envelope, obviously that's not a real ballot. Or if they see that the space that's been filled in does not have the consecutive circles of a pen, when you as he said, when you go to write something, there's an impact and then there's a takeoff, and they can track the threads of a pen versus whether it's been flat printed. So this is actually going on, and it's the first of a few. If this happens, Georgia is next. And as I say, the Democrats are doing everything. Rachel Maddow on CNN had a conniption, right? Of course, she threw every slanderous word, discredited this, that, and the other, conspiracy theory, QAnon, all this other kind of stuff. The woman is basically panicking. And it's quite simple. The math in Maricopa County it fucking doesn't work. 1 million extra people voted in a state that hasn't gone to a Democrat since Kennedy. It's
Right.
like pretty ridiculous. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting. And then it goes to Georgia, which is also a very, very spicy thing. You haven't heard about this, of course. Like media blackout. If you're not looking at it or looking for it, you're not going to see it. Which is,
I mean, I was about to mention Gavin Newsom's recall election will be starting soon.
Yeah, well, he has been recalled. He got like what? I think it was about 2 million votes.
Well,
but before we get on, what do you think of that? The audit.
I mean, yeah, the states and the counties themselves reserve every right to audit whatever they want. Like
according to their own constitution, like the state constitution.
Well, not even just according to their own constitution, but it's just like you got all the ballots. Like, because for like all that really happens, to my understanding, is when elections happen, they count the ballots, and then that's that. Like they keep everything that's there. They're not
for 2
years. Nothing is. Yeah, these ballots are just sitting in wherever they are. Like I don't know if it's warehouses or municipal buildings, and then they can be audited again. It's like a tax return. You get audited for up to 3 or 7 years, depending upon the person. It's always good to keep the records around. So I don't really see any problem with it either way.
So you'd kind of be wondering why the Democrats trying so hard to keep that. In fact, you could go online right now, azaudit.org. The whole thing is online. The whole thing is streaming. Everybody's like wearing different shirts and stuff like that. From the time the ballots showed up, everything has been on the internet live 24 hours a day. You can see everything.
Yeah.
And you contrast that with, the shenanigans we saw with the election, and the Democrats are screeching, no, we got to stop this audit. Kind of funny business. Wouldn't you say? That's kind of odd.
I mean, in terms of the overall stakes involved, it would just be things that would lead into the next election. Like they would be addressing this, like, well, we actually found some sketchy stuff, so we're gonna, crack down on this so that the next elections don't have this as often.
Correct.
And it would then, of course, reveal a lot of things that could be improved upon for other states and counties to adopt.
Correct. So, hopefully, unless, of course, the Congress decides to nationalize all voting rules.
So on the Gavin Newsom thing, so here's the thing. He's not recalled yet.
Well, they have enough signatures for the recall.
So the way it is you have to get signatures to initiate the recall election. Then the election determines if he gets recalled. Then if he gets recalled, then they do another election to put in the new governor.
Right. So I think they only need like 1.3 million. They're up to 2 million and over. So it's looking.
So the recall the recall election will happen, because it's not just get signatures and he's removed. You have to actually vote to remove him. Okay, and then that requires a percentage of turnout based upon voting registered voters. Like it's usually like 25% or a third have to vote. So you can't just get 100 people voting. It's good. They want a certain amount of people that are voting to do it. Then they do a re-election, like a special election for the new one. And of course, there are contenders for this already. Yes,
including
Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, Caitlyn Jenner.
Now, say what you want. I think she is running, and understand I said
as a Republican.
Yeah. Understand fine. I said she, and that's you'd say she, right?
I would say she. Yeah, I just have to keep reminding, because I knew her when she wasn't a her, so I have to remind myself that it's a she.
This is the thing, is like, I think there's kind of the middle ground of, it gets to a point where you can call a transgender person like a she or a he, depending upon what they're doing. After a while, unless they were like, there was a point, I think, like there are people who are trying to peddle narratives and trying to make like a publicity stunt when it comes to this. But some people, it's like, okay, yeah, in Caitlyn Jenner's case, I think, it's genuine, like with what she did.
Sure.
So here's what was interesting though. Now, for us, kind of openly talking about pronouns and all this and transgender stuff, like you could definitely, like, some people might not like it. They'll try to get you in trouble, get you canceled, and specifically if you're not even a left-winger and you do this, you make this mistake. Now, what I found out, which is really interesting, was on The View, Joy Behar. You heard about this?
No, I'm not sure. What did she say?
She I guess the proper term.
Oh, I did hear about this.
Misgendered Caitlyn Jenner like half a dozen times in succession. Right. And she just kind of brushed it off like, oh, I'm really sorry. I should have been more careful. Like during the show, like I should be referring to her as she. I probably just didn't get enough sleep. And that's all you really heard about it. Now the right, of course, is of course kind of spinning it like, hey, look at this, liberal privilege. Like, exactly, you can get away with all this stuff. You can make little slips. No one's going to try to cancel you. But if you're pretty much not a Democrat or on the left, you're not part of that establishment. Anyone who makes even the slightest mistake, like including us, who would just like, oops, like, oh, I don't quite understand. Like, I've had conversations with libertarians about certain individuals, whether it's in the party or people they recognize, like trying to understand, the proper pronouns and stuff. And there's usually people are very accommodating. They're just like, oh, this is, this. Like, they don't try to get into all like what are called the neo-pronouns and stuff, like disease and yeah. Like that honestly with a lot of that's happened from what I've experienced tends to be very much in the fringe. Yeah. No reasonable person is doing that. It's really just a difference between he, she, and occasionally like a they, them kind of situation. That's about it.
Well, that's what's accepted. Because I think even the New York Times kind of came out with an article that the pronoun things is getting out of hand. Yeah, but they championed this shit, right? Like, they are the champions of going ahead with the Caesar, tree, automobile, helicopter, whatever. So
Prince and stuff. Anyway, so that's where I am. I'm trying to understand, trying to be accommodating, trying to be nice and stuff because most people are very reasonable about it.
Yes.
So here comes Joy Behar that just bam, 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 bam. His campaign, he's doing this, he's running, and 6 or 7 different times. And then she just kind of brushes it off as, oh, sorry, I probably didn't get enough sleep. And the left is quiet about this.
I mean, this is not anything new. We know that they're if they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all, which is an expression that I love. But yeah, of course, we've seen even with the rioting and everything else that's going on. Like I'll speak to that what happened out here in the UK in a minute. The Portland. I think the governor or the mayor of Portland and stuff like that is like now asking people to stand up and demask the self-declared anarchists. They're not self-declared, they're Antifa, right? Antifa and BLM have been rioting for over a year. And when it was the left in and Trump was in office, it was the summer of love and you get a pass. And
this is the thing is, so if you misgender a Republican trans person, that's fine.
That's acceptable, correct? Because they have the wrong politics.
Yeah, and some people were even like, trying to figure this out. Like a Republican, it's not a trans Republican. It's a trans person who's a Republican.
Correct.
And it's that has got to be a really interesting like.
I mean, we've seen it before. We saw when, gay Republicans came out, so Milo Yiannopoulos and others, the left basically says you're the wrong kind of gay. So they're doing the same.
But what's funny about
thing.
Milo too is he's definitely been kind of caught in the whole now he's turned to religion. He says he's not gay anymore. He's fully.
I mean, that aside, that's a very recent addition. I'm not following what he's doing now. But we've seen how the left plays the hypocrisy game.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Milo was, he was a Republican. He came out, well, a conservative because he's English. And, he came out big supporting Donald Trump, but he was gay, but he's the wrong kind of gay. Right. It's the same thing you see with a lot of like black activists. So like Larry Sharp, Larry Elder, and a couple others. I can't remember them offhand. They're the wrong kind of black because they have conservative views, So, and this is it. The Democrats are championing this nonsense, right? This stereotypical thing, right? Even Joe Biden says, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. So,
yeah.
If they didn't have double standards, there'll be no standards.
Now, with a lot of the stuff that's going on, I don't know how this will play into their election with, if Newsom gets recalled and they have this new election. And it's probably not going to, but have you heard what happened with the census?
Yes. So I think, 6 states, including California, for the first time in 170 years, lost a Senate
California
seat.
lost seats. And then for the first time, Texas was leading and gaining seats.
Yeah, they got 2. They thought they were going to get 3. So all of the, like, New York, Oregon, like pretty much all the blue areas mostly have lost power to the Southwest. So I think Florida picked up 1. I don't know the exact number, but I know Texas picked up 2. Great.
Well, you got to also consider the fact that Texas could be gaining seats from a lot of migration from California.
Yeah, of course. That's exactly. I mean, when they minus from 1, it's obviously going somewhere else.
Here's the thing, though, is those counties or those districts are probably still going to be majority Republican.
Probably. Because they talked about a blue wave in the last election. Oh, yeah, Texas is going blue. Fucking didn't happen. And there has been a mass migration of Californians coming to Texas. Didn't make a difference. Did not make a difference.
Because it's basically those districts who were probably like 80-90% Republican just turned to like 60-70% Republican, which is still dominating and winning those districts. So you're basically just giving them more Republican congressmen at that point.
And this is what ends up happening, because now they can draw the districts. So gerrymandering comes into play. And I mean, if you've ever followed the gerrymandering in the US, it's very hilarious how they.
Oh yeah, the districts that are like circles.
Yeah,
and
like this group only, and it looks like
because they literally will just look at all the demographics and just decide, oh, I'm just going to draw this here and move that there, and
yeah. So I mean, the Democrats have tried to shift that to their advantage, of course. So the Republicans are now hopefully going to play the same game and be like, okay, well, we're taking this. And again, this kind of goes back to the election. The fact of the census and the shift that's gone on, it shows critically that the country has gone more right? When you're seeing, the demographics shifting and people moving away from these places, the balance of power in the United States has shifted to the right, because the East Coast and the West Coast have lost, the Senate seats and stuff like that. And you're telling me Biden was elected with 81 million votes when the whole segment of the country has gone right?
Yeah. The big thing too is I think Republicans and Democrats each have fairly equal in terms of they vote Republican or Democrat no matter what.
You always have a base. It's usually like 30%, 30%, and you got a middle. That's the independent.
So the middle. This is the thing: is with the bases the way they are, and the shift of power, and the independent middle that is also voting, is going to shift more to the right. That, and with you said with these election audits and such, could be a shift to the we're probably moving away from two-term presidents.
I don't necessarily think so.
You think no,
I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, what happened last time, of course, was an anomaly, which everybody's kind of shaking their head at, which is why it's being looked at and studied. But I don't see any reason why that trend will not continue. Save there is a massive breakup of the country. Save Texas really secedes. Or even if they break up Texas into 5 states, which is something they could technically do. I think you're going to see more kind of breakup of the country. People are going for more states. Everybody wants autonomy. They don't want to be ruled by these elitist, Democrat cities when you're out in, the country somewhere. So I don't think that's going to get away from the first or second. The last time I think Biden is out for sure. I think Biden is out before that. I think he might be out before the end of the year. I don't think
I know him, but I'm saying Democrats in general. I'm saying it shifts to the right again. So DeSantis or possible Trump.
Yeah, that's how it's going to go, because especially since there's a minority of people that support the positions the Democrats are taking now, making DC a state, packing the Supreme Court, going after gun rights. That is nowhere in the center of the American heartland. Right. There is no way that they're maintaining the lead, apart from shenanigans, right, is what we'll call it.
Yeah.
So I don't think the country has gone more left in any capacity. It's just that they control the cathedrals of power and media. So they got Google, big tech, all the media, all these things. So they're the loudest. But I don't think that doesn't represent the everyday voter.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying, though, is basically we're going to have less two-term presidents and a lot of single-term. Or do you think it's just going to go
I don't think so.
You think we're just going to go to the right after this?
Well, it depends on where the left ends up, because a lot of the people who are voting for the right were the left probably back in the 90s. It's the left has gone so far left. I mean, you literally have communists who are espousing positions, and an everyday classical liberal is not going to side with a communist.
Yeah.
So that has been the issue.
The American left is really weird because having in the past couple months, I looked into like actual leftism.
Mm-hmm.
So American leftism and actual leftism are very different too.
Well, it's hard to say what is actual leftism, but yeah, the left and right dichotomy is different in Europe than it is in
Biden and Kamala lean to the left, but they're more establishment left is a very kind of a niche position politically in terms of like if you looked in the political compass, it'd be like this little bit. It's not. Whereas if you look at if you want to look into like actually looking into the left, for example, like gun rights.
Mm-hmm.
If you go far enough to the left, you get pro-gun leftists. So far enough to the left, you get pro-gun.
The communists leftists. love guns. Yeah,
Marx was all for guns.
Yeah, he was. He said that the working class shouldn't disarm.
Yeah, and American leftists don't really know that. They think the left is anti-gun. And
it's not a real term because there's no hard and soft definition of left and right. It's just differently perceived.
Yeah, it's I guess if you look not to obviously I'm not entertaining the true communism argument, but you kind of look at the core ideas behind communism and you can see like, oh yeah, this is why it went wrong, but it wasn't meant. Like we talked on Religion Zero about how like the criticism is fair, and a lot of the initial discussions that he had could be like had some merit. It's just once it was implemented, everything went to shit because people trying to collectivize and work in that way is just not going to work. It's eventually the state steps in and communism absolutely fails. But in a small scale, when you look at the things that they believed in and such, it's like, yeah, it's still very hippie, commie kind of thing, but there is some in there that's like that a lot of modern day leftists that try to tout that they're, well, I'm a leftist and I'm so far left that I voted for Biden. It's like,
no, but Biden is old establishment crony kind of thing, more fascist than communist. But most of the establishment tends to be more fascist because they want to control the economy. They want the war machine and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
like Marx would hate all these people.
yeah, correct. So I mean, the struggle for Marx was, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So it was the working versus the capital, and that was like the classical distinction, right? You got the landowners and the factory owners versus the working class.
Yeah.
So that was the class struggle that he was dealing with. Most of the bourgeoisie is on the left now, right? They are the left.
Well, and then even the proletariat is essentially defined, as he's defined it, is supporting the bourgeoisie in this case.
Exactly. Well, I mean, obviously the lessons of history, capitalism is one, right? The idea of a centralized planned economy or a economy without property rights, that idea has completely fizzled except into a couple university classrooms around the world, right? So the right won the economic argument, right? Even the places like Scandinavia and stuff like that, they don't have a socialist economy. It is a capitalist economy with a social welfare system. Right. Very different than socialism and communism and these things. So the only place on the planet that is actually communist still would probably be Cuba. And even that is being questioned at this point because they have introduced property rights. You can now own a business. So fuck on, communism is fucked, right?
Yeah, I was looking at what was it, labor theory, the labor theory
of value. Yeah,
and then I looked into I tried understanding at one point why communists, I should say, if you want to call them true communists or anarcho-communists, whatever you want to call them, why they believe rent is theft. Mm-hmm. Well, they believe because labor is the only thing that is producing a value. So rent is just property.
Yes.
And they don't really believe in property rights because to have property, you could just make money for just owning something.
Correct.
Instead of but they think you can only make money by working.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And also they believe profits are the unpaid wages of the worker.
Yeah, that's what they believe. Because they believe the work is being exploited. So
because anything being sold to earn a profit is then above and beyond what the labor is worth. Therefore, it's like unethical in their views. Anyways,
yes,
not to get too far off into all that.
No, fully familiar with it, which is why they have the co-op, right? You can do a cooperative business in a capitalist economy, which is fine. And the nonprofits, for instance, or charities are technically cooperatives because the money is recycled back. So they make a profit, but it's kind of goes back into the business and stuff like that.
Yeah. I was listening to, I don't know if you heard of the Soho Forum.
It doesn't ring a bell, no.
So Reason TV or Reason Magazine, they'd have their YouTube channel. They do these things they call the Soho Forum, where they do debates. They'll set up and it's very proper. They time it. They have two opposing views. And then what they do is they have a vote before the debate.
Okay.
On the affirmative or the what's the opposite of the affirmative?
Yeah, the
yeah. And then they go through the debate. And then they have the crowd vote again to see like who's won the debate.
Like the Oxford Union.
Yeah. So they had one very recently, like in the last week or two, on capitalism versus socialism. And I actually learned quite a bit about socialism. Like it was
it's not a small topic by any means.
Yeah, but it's definitely like, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, it definitely came down to like it was it was kind of sucked because it's like, just for me wanting to learn more, the guy arguing for socialism had a very narrow view of why socialism makes sense. Like it was purely based upon the argument of Jeff Bezos, too much money, his employees are pissing in bottles.
Right.
That was it. It was like that was his starting point. It wasn't like an overview of capitalism. Like if you want to list like crimes, so to speak, of capitalism and free, market economies, go broad. Like you could talk about Walmart, Amazon, and all these other companies, but he just stuck it with Amazon, and then that was it. And then and then he started talking about like a lot of these what was it, like work? So there's like corporations and stuff that have like elected workers. Sorry, not elected management, elected CEOs. They have controls in place that keep between the lowest employee and the CEO no more than 11-to-1 wage difference.
Right.
Different things like that. And kind of balancing, basically creating a more fair, quote unquote, fair workplace. And he says, yeah. And the capitalist guy was like, yeah, you could totally do that in the US. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Correct.
He even laid out a lot of stuff like, this is how much capital, what you call the 99% has. Here's the purchasing power. Here's what they could do. They could totally pool their money together and do these things, create these cooperative businesses. They can totally do this. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
Correct.
And then he went into like workplace happiness and such. Like, if you look overall, he goes, you're only addressing one part of the problem instead of looking overall. Like, well, there's definitely improvement. And he even was like, I can agree with you on these things. We just need to deregulate the market more to make these things actually more in line with your ideas. We can fight crony capitalism together, like basically.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I listened to it. I was like, yeah, I learned a little bit, but I realized like, yeah, modern day leftists and socialists, there's just not enough of them, or not enough that know well enough that are willing to like debate on a bigger, like, I'm not necessarily saying like they could, but it's like, I still haven't seen it yet.
I don't even know who. I guess I was this guy on YouTube. Oh fuck, he's like a full-on communist and stuff like that. Vosh, have you seen Vosh?
Yeah. Heard of him.
I mean, he's a fucking idiot. But anyway, the problem is most of the people who are advocating for communism and socialism and all this other kind of nonsense don't even know what it is, right? That's always where you start. Like, when somebody says, oh yeah, capitalism is, the root of all evil and stuff. I said, well, what does it mean? What is capitalism? And they give me some bullshit answer like, yeah, it means make a profit. I was like, no, there are charities in capitalism that don't make a profit. What do you mean? Not every company makes a profit. Many go bust under capitalism. Yeah. What are you talking about? So they don't even know what it is, right? So they must, oh, well, whatever. So the same thing with socialism. What is socialism? Oh, they think it's the post office. No, that's a government service. Oh, they think it's whatever, some government program or other things.
The fire station.
Yeah, fire stations. No, classical Marxism, in terms of what is communism, is a stateless, moneyless, classless society. Basically, everything is cooperatively owned. There's no real leadership. Everybody kind of shares what they have intrinsically. Socialism, as you say, is the distribution of the rights of means of production and all of these different types of things. Everywhere it's been tried, it's failed. And then you went from classical Marxism to the revisionists. You got Mao, you got Stalin, you got Lenin, and they all kind of realized, okay, we really can't do the market thing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to control the institutions that control the market, because we really can't control the market. And every time they did that, it failed, right?
Yeah.
So they took over the schools, the banking, whatever, manufacturing unions, whatever the case might be. Then that fell apart. So today we have something called Neo-Marxism, which has nothing to do with Marxism at all, because it's based on a capitalist economy.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the premise that the government should take control of the industry and let it operate in a capitalist economy. Yeah. That is the complete opposite of what Marx was teaching. Most people don't even know the basics.
And really, classical Marxism is basically anarcho-communism in its purest form.
Correct.
Because you even have different interpretations within that. You have like, you know what a mutualist is, right?
Yeah. And there was the voluntarist and the agorist, and
because mutualist is more communist. Voluntarist is basically another word for anarchist.
Yeah, pretty much.
But voluntarism is more closely associated with anarcho-capitalism.
Correct.
And then we had actually, people could go back and look at this too. One of our way back episodes where we had Eric Laprise.
All right, okay.
The Black Flag anarchist, who was talking about a lot of different ideas about that. Like, he considered himself a Black Flag anarchist. Basically, I guess the closest thing would be like, the closest thing I would think was just like a centrist anarchist. Like he considered like he basically said like the anarcho-communists are good at criticizing corporatism, cronyism, and such, but they suck at money.
Right.
He says the capitalists are really good at the markets, the value, the money, and understanding, but they really suck at criticizing cronyism because a lot of them tend to be on the surface. Like I call it ANCAP 1.0. Like there's
no nuance.
Yeah,
it's
there's Atheist 1.0,
everything.
which is just the edgy 14-year-old that says, "Oh, God doesn't exist."
Yeah.
Similarly, you have the ANCAP 1.0 that's like, taxes. McDonald's should just run our lives. It's like, what? Amazon should just run everything because, drones.
They're so efficient, yeah.
And it's like, no. That's where Dave Rubin got in trouble for that once. He went on Rogan on some ANCAP high and started going off about it's just markets, Joe, and drones, and it's like, oh no.
I mean, even Ludwig von Mises made the point that look, there are some things the government some things are better done collectively, right? Defense, like like defending a country. You're not going to leave that up to the free market. I'm sorry. You need to unify a country to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are functions that do happen better collectively. Not many, but yeah, there are a few. So to go like complete Ancapistan sort of thing, that might work in a very small environment, like a Morocco or something.
Same thing with anarcho-communists. It works in a commune. That's about it.
Your home, in your family is communist, right? You go, when you were born, you had access to everything, your dad was paying all the bills or whatever. It was kind of like, I own the sofa, the cat's mine. It's ours, it's the family's, right? That's communism. It works great in the home.
It'd be really funny. I'm just the meme.
Hey, Mictobus, thanks for joining us, bro.
A lot of the memes, my family, and then it changes. No, our family.
I posted one the other day where, like classical trope, you go out for dinner and the wife is like, I don't want anything to eat. And you get like a bunch of fries and she goes for the fries. And it's like, my fries? No, our fries.
Man, we just went way off there.
Oh, that's cool.
No, it's a good topic to get into. I don't think we really touched on that as much.
What's that?
Talking much. It's been a while since we really talked a lot of economics, political ideologies, and such.
Yeah, thank God it's a slow news cycle.
Well, that's why we're going into this. At least we're not talking about movies and shows, right?
Not yet. Did you see the new Mortal Kombat?
I haven't seen it yet.
It's not as good as I would have hoped.
No, I've been watching. You have Prime, right?
Sorry?
You have Prime, Amazon Prime.
No, I don't have Amazon Prime.
Oh, never mind.
Doesn't mean I haven't seen it.
Yeah. So there's this show, Invincible.
No, that I haven't seen. I haven't seen that. Is that a series?
It's a graphic novel adapted into an animated series on Amazon.
Okay, cool.
It's got J.K. Simmons, who was who is he? I mean, we know who he is. He plays the Daily Bugle, Spider-Man. He was the head guy.
Oh, he was the editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Give me pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah. He has a great voice. So he plays this basically knockoff Superman in a graphic novel. And he has a son who he had with this Earth woman. Like it's like a pretty much a lot of part of it is like it's a mix between some Marvel tropes, some DC tropes, Justice League kind of vibes, but it's an adult show.
Right.
So it kind of throws you off.
Kind of like The Boys.
Yeah, but it's very different. Like once you get into it, like the first episode is just it goes from, and I'm not spoiling at this point. It's just it goes from kind of this wholesome superhero. There's a lot of this good stuff. There's some cool stuff. You can kind of pick up on, like, there's a little bit of an adult theme that's kind of creeping in. You're like, oh, okay, everything seems good. And then it just ends with a punch. And you're like, okay, I really want to watch more of this.
I'm thinking, because, I recently got a television, right? So I'm not hooked up to any kind of live TV because that would be illegal in the UK. So I have Netflix.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was like, of course it's,
Yeah,
illegal.
Of course it's illegal. No, would never do that. So it's illegal to watch any live television in the UK. Even if it's streaming on YouTube or whatever, technically you need a license. Anyway, so I've got, some apps on it. I've got YouTube, I've got BitChute, I've got Netflix, of course. And I was like, well, for $7 more, I do spend some money on shipping and stuff when I order from Amazon. Maybe just get fucking Amazon Prime and, just enjoy the free shipping. And then I check my statement and I realize I've been billed twice for Amazon Prime already. And I don't have access to Amazon Prime. I was like, oh, what the hell? So apparently somebody used my credit card to get into Amazon Prime. So I'm waiting a couple of weeks or months for that whole debacle to settle down before I reintroduce it and actually check out the service.
Wouldn't you then get a new card at that point?
There doesn't seem to be a sign of a breach, because otherwise American Express would have called me about it. It just seems like the charge went through on their end by mistake. So like I might have been watching.
Did they reverse it?
Yeah, I got the money back.
Okay, I was like,
so I don't know how that happened. They didn't really give me much of an explanation, but so I'm kind of monitoring it to see before I sign back up, and I'll do the 30-day trial, and I'll probably check it out and stuff.
Because I think I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I'll mention it here. I think I told you how I got. So I have the card set for certain purchases, and it tried to overcharge on the card, and then it came back like, we declined this charge because it was this, and this. So $250 from some Armenian company.
Oh, you did tell me about this. Yes.
But it tried to go through all at once.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't go through. And then it started to incrementally charge it.
Really?
Like someone was like, I don't know. It was really weird. And I was like, I just got this card. Like,
damn, that information's been leaked already? Fuck.
And I was like, did I swipe it somewhere wrong? Skimmer or something. Because I was really confused. I looked at the website because it just showed up as a URL for on the state.
Okay. Yeah.
The pending charges coming through. So then I look it up, and it's this Armenian page. And I didn't even try to figure out like what page. It was a website. It looked like some customer service, some maybe retail thing. It was just a bunch of pictures of people with like headsets, like doing customer service stuff. I'm like, the hell is this? So I contact the bank. They say, all right, we know this is happening. We're canceling your card, sending you a new one. Here's all the paperwork to dispute the charge and all this stuff. Like, we'll take care of it all. And I got the new card, no problem anymore. But it was just weird. Like, I only had this card for maybe not even a month.
Yeah, it now that you're mentioning it, I think I saw another Amazon charge on my card that I have to now go and dispute. So thanks for reminding me. I gotta look that up after the show. But yeah, it happens. I mean, when I was in the hacking community and stuff like that, skimming credit cards was basically like popcorn. I mean, we had
hacking community, huh?
Oh, that's like back in the day. It's not the same anymore. You got to go on like Tor and the dark web and shit like that now. But back in my day, you go on the FTP sites and you could download lists of credit cards, and it was bad. It was bad. Yeah. It's not much better now, which is why they keep calling us to change the cards.
Yeah.
And do you know who else is going to be running for governor of California besides Caitlyn Jenner?
Who?
Mary Carey. Do you know who that is?
Why does that sound so familiar?
She's a porn star, and she's been running for governor of California since Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California.
Why do we never hear of her?
I mean, it's a fun story. Porn star runs for governor of California. Mary Carey. I think that's her
Carey.
name. Buxom blonde porn star. You see her?
Huh.
You want to show the good people? So anybody's interested, you just go on Pornhub and you type in Mary Carey.
No, I just typed in Google and I was like, oh,
it's like that, is it? Yeah.
it's like that.
So I remember the first time she ran was with the recall of whoever it was, Governor Brown at the time. I think I might have that wrong, whoever it was. And that's when Arnold Schwarzenegger got in, but she ran against him, as well as a couple others.
Let's see here. What's going on here? What? Anyways, I'm straight up just looking through Twitter
Reddit?
at the moment. No. Twitter. I'm just looking through like what it has, what's going on. I mean, I guess this kind of ties in with stuff we talk about. We didn't discuss the verdict. We didn't discuss the verdict. We haven't.
I was just pulling up here to see what else. I knew I had some notes.
Okay. Because it happened right after, like later that day. So Tuesday we did our show. We talked a little bit about the Derek Chauvin case, but the verdict came out later that day. I know. Well, Brook would have been in bed at this point, but it happened late afternoon. Yeah. So, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter.
Yes,
are the official charges that he was both charged with, convicted, guilty, the whole thing. 3 charges. But just before, there was already talks of Maxine Waters making her statements, the protests going on outside. There's also been rumors that the jurors' identities and so all this stuff have been leaked. They didn't sequester the jury. It's just a mess. Now, for me personally, I think, Derek Chauvin, at least manslaughter. That's what I think. Now, I heard the arguments of why second degree, because I was like, I thought any kind of murder requires intent. But the second degree argument was made because they believe because what he did to Floyd, they believed, was the initiation of assault, like felony assault, because of the degree of the. I'll play it out. So that, and then the disregard, because they believed there was at one point his knee was still on him, not like neck or anything, but on him. And he stopped moving. Like there should have been a point that he should have just let him go. Like if he stops moving, you get off him. Like not like stop moving, like stop squirming, like gone limp.
No, of course not, because criminals do that all the time. That's not an excuse, really. Right. Well, when they stop breathing, that's something different. But
so,
you have to remember those kinds of stunts are performed every day to try and get out of these things.
But for him to be so, visibly, physically like agitated, squirming, moving, freaking out, to then all of a sudden completely stop breathing, stop moving. And then for him
they didn't know he'd stop breathing. He just stopped moving. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in all this, everything that's going on, I don't think you can know exactly if they knew, like what they knew or what they didn't know, what they were thinking.
Correct.
Obviously. But that was the second degree argument, was because it initiated as what they were arguing as felony assault, leading into then continuing to hold him down after he stopped moving and then died. That they thought that turns into second degree.
Right.
Because the intent is the assault, the result is death. That's that argument. Then third degree murder and second-degree manslaughter were kind of like, I had figured it was jumping between those two because of, you know, involuntary basically means he accidentally killed him by his actions, or third degree is in a depraved state he killed him. And then second degree, it includes some idea of a depraved state of mind, but more the intention to hurt that then led to death. Like the intent is there, but the intent to kill is not as clear. It's all very weird, but
yeah,
the way they argued everything out, like they made all their arguments. This trial went on a decent amount of time. But it's still, I mean, some people have said like it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to make sure the jury was entirely impartial by sequestering them, because first of all, we didn't know how long the trial was going to go. You know, you're essentially detaining the jury with all the procedures you have to go through to properly sequester them. Take away TV, take away phones. Do they get to talk to their family? What if their family, you know, influences their decision?
I mean, they do that all the time. That's not really an excuse, right? I mean, capital murder crimes, they usually import people from other states.
That's another thing. So
right. So I mean, yeah, that's not really an argument.
So there was two different theories as to why they didn't sequester them. Did they not sequester them? There's a lot. I mean, there's two main ones that I think are kind of in conflict with each other, which is really funny. The one is they didn't sequester so that they could make sure the juries were properly, you know, having a bit of fear in them to just go along with whatever charge. Or the other one was to do that so then the court would have proper grounds to then be, you know, to appeal the trial.
Correct.
Because, which is basically where it's going right now. So from what I looked into was, if there's proper grounds to appeal, which it seems like there would be, it would just zero in on specific charges rather than, like there would still be charges, but it would just be one or two instead of all three.
Probably.
It would just, it's just a more of a, you know, instead of a sort of throw the book, it's properly, try to be as specific as possible with what charges would make the most sense instead of throw the book. Because that's the thing is, and I, this is like I said, I still believe that there should be some consequence to Derek Chauvin. But here's what I also didn't like about the verdict. I shouldn't say the verdict itself, the reaction to the verdict.
Right.
Once it came out, I mean, Facebook, you know, my news feed was just flooded with people just the bandwagon of justice is served and all this stuff and all these things and everything's great. And I mean, someone even was like, I'm so proud of all days to today to be in Minnesota. I'm thinking, what? You weren't proud of being in Minnesota before today? Being proud, like being proud of whatever it is, you know, you think a Minnesotan is, has nothing to do with this cop. Has everything to do with like everything else about this thing. So I'm looking at people are posting about it, and I like, it's not that I don't care. Like, obviously we've been keeping up with this, talking about this, we've been following all this, like, so we have a vested interest, but everyone else a lot of other people are just like
clueless.
It's just virtue signaling. So I'm just sitting here seeing all this posting. I'm like, shut up. You didn't know. You didn't care. Yeah. You only care because everyone else is posting about it. This is the first time you ever posted anything about it. Like, you posted it the one time it happened, and then now after the trial.
Correct.
You didn't post anything in between. You didn't follow anything. You probably didn't even watch a lot of the videos. Or, I mean, I'm not as informed as I'd like to be on this whole thing. And I'm still more informed than a massive majority of these people trying to follow this. Yeah. And I'm just like, holy crap. You know, and I'm, you know, it's interesting how everyone's like trying to claim it as some sort of, you know, it's a great day for Minnesota. It's just another day in Minnesota. Like, not to diminish, you know, the case. It's just, it's a different thing. Like, the ramifications that are coming from this trial are different than what does Minnesota stand for. Because this could have just as easily happened anywhere else in the country as it has. Like these incidents are happening all over the place, and there, some of them who need to be addressed aren't being addressed. Some of the other ones that are very convoluted, there's a lot of nuance in the case, get blown into a certain narrative before any facts come out. This is just, this is just the media doing what it wants to do with these stories. So it's like there are more cases that could be really solid to like pin some cops and keep them really accountable, but because the narrative is not quite there. Like you hear about the black veteran that got messed with by some cops?
Is this a recent one? No, I haven't.
Yeah, so it was a veteran in uniform, black guy, got pulled over by some cops and was very compliant and everything, and they pepper sprayed him.
Okay.
Like he was in uniform and everything. He gets out, they asked him to get out of the vehicle, and he's, hands up, everything. And you see them just spray him.
No, I don't know anything about that. I'd have to see it.
Like there are, but it's.
There's so much nuance, to these situations.
Oh, exactly. But it's like, if it's not a certain type of story that can just get blown out of proportion, they won't go with it. You have to actually dig this up.
Correct. The media is not really interested in the truth.
Like, this is Linda last week. So I don't know if
I haven't shared my view on the thing. Let me say something.
Sorry.
But yeah, no. So I watched the trial. The state did not make their case. Right? There was no bruising. There was plenty of oxygen in his lungs. The burden of proof was on the state, and they, as far as I was concerned, they really did not make the case for intent or hostility, or even prove that the actions actually made a difference in terms of losing his life. Mm-hmm. They said it could have had about an effect, but the biggest thing was the drugs that he ingested. But fine, I figured it's a political showcase. They're going to have to slam the book on him in some way. So when you told me that they'd coming back with a verdict that quick, it's either everybody voted guilty or everybody voted innocent. It's one of the two. And I had a feeling, because Biden then opened his mouth and said something about, we need justice. All of these factors were coming in. And okay, so you see the guilty verdict on everything. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what you get. And anyway, that didn't stop the riots. The riots went on anyway. They just found something else to talk about. You had AOC and these people come out and say, well, there's no way to know how bad it would have been. But yeah, fair enough. It probably was tapered. But then you have the clowns like AOC coming out and saying this isn't justice. Justice would have been George Floyd going home to his wife that evening. And, Barack Obama and all these people basically shitting all over the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, right. You got all that nonsense going on. However, there were a couple alternate jurors that came forward and shared their story. I don't know if you heard about this or not. So,
really supposed to.
Yeah, well, they can because they're not part of the actual. The
alternate jurors.
Yeah, they are the. They didn't know they were the alternates until the end. They say they call whatever it is, 10 or however many, but there's usually like 14 or so in the box, and they have those ones. And
the jurors who actually served, they can't say anything.
Correct. The ones who actually made that decision could not say anything. Anyway, a couple of the alternate jurors came out and expressed explicitly they feared for their lives. They were terrified of what was going to happen. They had been doxxed and all these other types of things. And everybody in that room was just like, we need to get the fuck out of here as fast as possible.
Yeah.
With as little damage as possible.
And even if somehow even if you could without a doubt say they made the right decision, like prove they made the right decision on the verdict, it's still not right.
It's tainted, regardless.
It's still tainted. Like tainted justice is not the best kind of justice. Like
it's duress.
It's duress. Yeah. It's like, and for people who will just say anyone who believes in, not using force to force this, basically utilizing force to make a political end, should understand that that's a problem.
Correct.
That a jury, while making a decision that most people see as correct, or at least partially correct, mostly correct, however you want to say it, it's still made under duress.
Correct. It's the classic example of this is if you're getting married and you have a prenuptial agreement, you do not, under any circumstances, let your spouse sign that agreement on the day of the wedding. You got all the guests there, you got her in the dress or him in the thing, and like all the paraphernalia is ready to go. You do not spring that on somebody at the last minute, because that will get thrown out in court, right? And I think we're seeing, was it Jay-Z or one of these people having that same thing.
Prenup?
Yeah, prenup. So you cannot. Because technically the court can argue that's under duress. You're putting undue pressure, even though it's no threatening, nothing like that. It's the thought of it behind it is influencing your actions.
Yeah.
So that's a very good example of what we see taking place. But the other side of this, which is equally as scary, is it sends the message to these Antifa, BLM, anarchist types that they can influence the law through intimidation. This is why the US policy has always been you never negotiate with terrorists, because the minute you give an inch, they take a mile. So these cities and so forth, as you say, they rioted anyway. You're quite right. It probably was not as bad as it could have been, but they still rioted, right?
Yeah.
So anytime there's an incident like this, you've basically opened the floodgates to be like, well, we got it sorted out. We just have to make as much noise and we'll get the verdict we want. On the other side, the last point on this is like the state did everything they could to poison the well. They paid out to Floyd's family before, what was it, $30-something million?
$27 million.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
500,000 was given to the George Floyd autonomous zone.
The autonomous zone, yeah, exactly. Where
people died and crime and cops couldn't get to them. Correct.
So that happened before the trial.
Yeah.
So they had already admitted guilt before the trial. This is capitulation. It's weak. It's really pathetic. You have all the non-sequestering. You got all this other stuff going on. Yeah, and the jurors are now coming out basically saying we were terrified. We saw what was going on. They walked past the barbed wire and all the guards and everything every day. So I think the appeal has a very, very strong case.
Yeah.
But what is equally more devastating than all of that is the amount of police that have resigned from these police departments. Some places as much as 60%. And recruitment has dried up. Because basically, the gig is up. If you are a white cop, the city doesn't have your back. Period. If you kill a black person, they will lynch you. And you have no protections.
Even if it's, because
who's going to take that job?
This is that weird thing, is because I obviously, any reasonable person, myself included, would never ever advocate no, we don't want anyone to die.
Of course not.
Because I'm trying to balance this with certain being a libertarian and understanding being anti-authoritarian, looking at cops do a bunch of stuff, but looking at it from just in a vacuum, from a very basic standpoint of these are people that are with even the most basic duties that police are to fulfill, with protection, with enforcing laws. You cannot account for all the interactions. You cannot account for all the factors at play when you're dealing with people who are out to hurt them.
Correct. So
when you create an atmosphere, well, I shouldn't even say because of the media, but just there are places that are just so overrun with violence that police lives are threatened regardless of anything,
Correct.
regardless of justification. The cop doesn't have to do anything wrong, and his life is in jeopardy. So in order to defend himself, like, this is the thing is, people will say, George Floyd deserved to go home to his family. Absolutely. I actually agree with that, and just in and of itself. But maybe it wasn't. What if it wasn't Derek Chauvin? What if it was one of the other guys that was there? The other 3 cops that was with him? What if it was any other cop that maybe wasn't even there? Just any other cop at any other time. Do they not deserve to go home to their family?
Correct.
This is not to defend cops. I think it's just to defend, the sanctity of life in general, for me, when I'm looking at it. So in those situations, I'm not trying to justify, one over the other. Like, Floyd deserved to live, Derek Chauvin deserved to die, Chauvin deserved whatever, the other way around. But I just go, and it's like, you can't, you need to look at everything that's in play and realize who's, what can be going through the mind of someone who is risking their life.
Correct.
And yeah, you got to reform the police. Yes, you have to reform laws. You have to end, the drug war and all this stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff like that went into contributing to everything that happened. Like, so it came out that, what was it? George Floyd pretty much ate all his drugs.
Yeah. And then they found the thing in the back of the car. Correct?
Yeah, he consumed all the drugs, which is why there was the the OD and then his
and he had stuff
condition
in it before. So yeah, there's.
But this is the thing. If you didn't have, this is definitely other things in play too, but like, you need to address the things that led to this instead of just the issue, the incident itself. Changing police training so that the specific thing that he did with putting his knee on him, like, there's actually there's some conservatives I listen to who do so Steven Crowder was talking about, like, because he does like some MMA, some like martial arts stuff. He said there's way better ways that are way less damaging to a person to restrain them that police could do, besides the knee on the back thing. Whether it's on the back or the neck, whatever you believe happened there.
Or both.
Yeah. Change the training. Reform the way they handle these situations. Give them better resources to better handle people who are endangering themselves and the police trying to apprehend them. Also, end the drug war. So that people are such in fear for their lives because they would rather risk consuming all the drugs in their possession, risking their lives, than go to jail for just possessing things that they're fully consenting to just do. Like, you should be free to do what you want with your body to consume drugs ever you want.
Even if you're going to jump in a car and drive?
From my understanding from the trial, he was just going to pass out, and he was actually going to have
probably would have, but
no, he wasn't even going to drive. He was just going to sleep.
I mean, we don't know, but
if the driving, so if you're driving,
obviously he got there somehow, right?
Yeah. So if you're driving, then you're on those drugs, and then you're risking others. That's a different thing.
I mean, that's what they're saying, that he'd ingested stuff before, he drove there, and when the cops came, he consumed even more.
Yeah,
to kind of put him over.
Right. So, but that
I'm
would be
completely on board and the drug war.
Yeah, but that would be a separate thing altogether.
Yeah, it's like driving under the influence. You can keep those kinds of laws. I think they got something in Colorado.
It's actually funny.
Drive high.
Driving under the influence, obviously illegal. You can get arrested for it.
Driving under the influence is bad.
But funny enough, only 1 out of 20 people is ever caught.
Yeah, probably.
There are tons of people out there.
Yeah, probably.
Driving under the influence, driving drunk, doing dumb stuff. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever.
Or even just being tired. I remember lacking like 36 hours sleep driving home. I started fucking hallucinate, man. I was like seeing elephants in the room.
So in Minnesota, I believe driving while tired.
Yeah.
It's not really illegal.
No, it's not illegal.
But here's what they could do.
If you're impaired from lack of sleep, that is illegal.
Well, there's no way of really. So I heard someone told me this, and I don't know if it's true or not. Basically, if a cop pulls you over because you're kind of doing a little thing, they can kind of tell you're tired. You're not showing up on a breathalyzer. You're obviously not under any influence. You're just tired. Yeah. What they'll do is they'll pick you up, let you sleep in jail. Just like, hey, get some sleep.
Right.
And impound your car. So you're not really charged with anything.
But you got to pay to get your car.
You got to pay to get your car back. So it's
like for the
kind
tow
of this,
job.
Yeah. You're screwed. You know, you're screwed out of a few $100.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, the best I heard is if you are intoxicated, I don't know if you heard this or not. Maybe I got it from you. If you are pulled over and you are intoxicated, what you do is you turn off the engine, pull up the handbrake, and you take the keys, jump out of the car, drop the keys on the ground, grab a bottle or something, and just chug it really, really fast. And then they can't tell if you were drunk before or after. The cars are not a danger to anybody because it's parked up. You're not in possession of the keys. And technically speaking, they can't charge you for drunk driving.
But how are you going to get home?
Well, I mean, obviously they're gonna have to impound you. You have to do what you just talked about.
But it'll basically be less than.
It'll be less than the charge, I suppose. That's
you wouldn't get like a DWI or something.
Yeah. They wouldn't be able to prove it. They would not be able to prove it. And as long as you're not in possession of the keys, so you got to throw the keys on the ground, open the door, chug the bottle, and I mean, it might make you sick. Somebody fact check me on that. I can't remember where I heard that. I thought that was the most brilliant thing I'd ever heard. Brilliant. But yeah, it's a real problem. The police around the US, you know, it is one of the staples of power. If you do not control the police if the state does not have the backing of the police, that is like the beginning of the decay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you have revolutions and shit that take place across like countries, it's when the military and the police turn against the government. That's when you know it's basically over. Now, I mean, I'm not saying y'all are there yet, but the demoralization, like the police know that they do not
forget defunding the police. The police will just quit themselves.
Yeah, they are. They're quitting in droves. I mean, even the police chief in Minneapolis basically said, "You will be stabbed, you will be robbed. Expect it, because we're not putting ourselves at risk."
There was the one that resigned. I know that.
Yeah, he later stepped down, but he said, "Yeah, you're going to be robbed. Like, you're going to be stabbed." Yeah. We're not coming out to this.
Well,
yeah, it's
you heard about the whole thing where police, there was a Supreme Court? So when they were looking into the Parkland shooting, there was something in there where there was in one of the courts that basically made there was a precedent set that said basically police are not compelled or mandated to respond to a crisis.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
And it was like, what? So it kind of puts the people against the police too. It's like, wait, you're not really required to protect us?
No, it's voluntary. It's they have to respond to the call. Like, oh, we got a shooting on such and such. Who's in the area? Yeah, but you can't force somebody to go and do that.
Oh, no. But like, so the question is now is like, you know, so how far does that oath really go for police? Like, are they really required to protect the people? Like, you know, does protect and serve false advertisement on a police squad car?
Oh, hell yeah. Well, that it's not there to protect the people. It's there to protect the politicians, right? It's there to protect who's paying their bills. Unfortunately, occasionally the actual, you know, plebiscite gets a little action as well, but
yeah, cops are interesting. Now,
interesting topic. I mean, we had recently we had one of the biggest demonstrations in London It happened, I think, what was Saturday gone? That was the 24th. Let me just quickly check here. So yeah, it was the 24th of April 2020. We did the March for Freedom in London. Massive turnout, humongous turnout. It was estimated to be between 700 to 1 million people showed up at this event.
That's a big range. 700 people to
700,000. Sorry, to 1 million. Right, that's my mistake. Yeah. 700,000 to 1 million. Yeah. And there's videos of it. There's drone footage, all kinds of great stuff, right? And it's all different types. It's people basically protesting the lockdowns and the draconian measures and basically our authoritarian dictatorship that we're living under in the UK. I would have loved to go out, but I think that was around the time I told you I got this. I don't know if I told you, but I had like an earache. I had like a pain and stuff, and I'm still like right now my jaw is still kind of itchy. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't close my mouth.
Looks a little swollen.
So was that
swollen?
Might be a little bit swollen on this side. Yeah. I can't tell, but yeah. So I would have loved to go out. Anyway, all the freedom fighters, the stand in the park, all these guys went out. Now, peaceful organization, London people, English, British people, they don't get into tussles. They don't get into fights unless you're BLM and Antifa and all this kind of stuff, which we had recently as well. We also, when, it wasn't Derek Chauvin, it was somebody else. Well, it was George Floyd. Yeah. When he had his incident, we had a massive controversy in London with BLM, and we had all the cops kneeling, and our Labour secretary took a knee and all this bullshit. And that was all praised as, oh yeah, the expression of, the minorities and whatever. Anyway, when these people come out and basically protest the government, biggest protest probably, at least in the last 50 years or so, the media didn't say a word. There was nothing. There was just complete crickets. No, not even in the newspapers or anything like that. But what ended up happening? Something very interesting, and I'm interested on your thoughts of it. We have a Hyde Park, which is a massive open air field in London, in central London. There was a guy there playing his guitar, kind of jamming out in speaker's corner, just like, freedom, take the vaccine, shove it up your ass kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, a small bastion of police suddenly go in to grab his music equipment, like his guitar, his amplifier, and all this other kind of stuff, right? And they attacked him for it. The police attacked him. Anyway, this resulted in the crowd turning on the police. And not like riot gear, but people are like, shame on you, and they're throwing bottles of water and like how the English would basically fight off the police, right?
Cups of tea.
Yeah, cups of tea, and God bless the Queen.
Crumpets.
Exactly, slice of cake and shit, So I mean, but they did push them back. They pushed them out of the park, basically. And I mean, there were some people who were obviously more antagonistic. I think some kid got caught with like a battery in a sock or some shit, right? And I looked at it and I said, I'll bet you anything, that is what's going to end up in the news. They're going to get a picture of the people rushing the police and basically say, this is, and Amos, the next day, that's exactly what it is. And our Home Secretary, wasn't it P.T. Patrell, came out and said, we condemn these thugs that came out and attacked our police, and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at it and it's like, they ran in there to get that photograph. The police were sent there to get that picture. And there's, some girl has a bruise on her head, and, somebody like broke a nail or some shit. That is the level of deception and just malarkey we're dealing with.
So I wanted to quickly touch on this because kind of bring it back. I'll bring it back to there's an interesting story I knew. But so you saw last week, some people maybe also on here saw it because it was only on Facebook, so it depends on who saw it. So Spike Cohen, who's been on here a couple times on the show, basically wrote a post about me, kind of like talking about what I do for him, but Some people, there was a couple people that reached out to people, like mutual friends of mine, that thought I was dead.
They thought you'd passed on.
Yeah,
I mean, I know the vaccine was uncomfortable. I didn't think it'll do all that.
Because it just says, this is Amos Joseph. It's just like
remember him, say his name.
Yeah, and I was like, what? No, but yeah, no. Spike wrote a nice little kind of he called it like a team member spotlight. It was his way of kind of writing about me because he knows in May I'm running for a position with the Minnesota Libertarian Party, so it's kind of, but he can't officially endorse anything. He just, but he was like, yeah, I'll at least talk about this guy. So put that up and everything, and talking about how I've written a lot of stuff for him, and yeah, it's pretty cool. But one of the things I learned, I don't know if I talked about this last week. Maybe I did with you off camera or something. But so he has like a series of posts that he likes to put up, talking about like police brutality, trying to address like as much as they can. And from what I've learned is basically like the narrative by the media and how they control this. Like a lot of these stories that we'll find are very limited to just like local news or specific cause websites. So there was this video that I don't know if I talked about in the show. Did I tell you about the old lady with the Walmart?
I doesn't ring a bell. No.
Okay. So there was an old lady about 72 years old. 72, suffering from dementia. I forgot where it was, but anyway, she goes to Walmart and picks up some stuff. And because
she didn't pay.
She forgot to pay.
Right. I didn't read it, but I saw a headline somewhere about this. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is like it's kind of there. Like, and you and I definitely look more into the news than the average person. But this is not.
Yeah, we got an hour and a half to fill. So.
But like, yeah, but this kind of stuff you're not seeing in the mainstream when it's really horrible stuff.
Yeah.
So she goes to a Walmart to buy stuff, and because of her dementia and everything, she forgets to pay. She just walks out.
Yeah.
Here's kind of the turning point where everything could have been avoided. She walked out, and a Walmart employee chased after her and said, "Hey, ma'am, sorry you forgot to pay." Oh, I'm sorry. Like, we meet ready to go back in and pay, right?
Right.
They say, no, we've already called the police.
Okay.
So she's like, what? And then so she's, and you cannot ever know what's going on with a person with dementia.
Correct.
So she just left.
Okay.
So she leaves.
She fled the scene.
So walked.
Okay. Yeah, she's leaving the scene.
Yeah, so she's walking away. So the body cam footage. So you see the body cam footage of a cop that approached her. So he goes up to her and and when you see her too, like she's just this little old lady, skinny, like nothing. She's frail and everything. She's walking away and she's like, "I'm going home." And then the cop's like, "No, like you're gonna have to come with us." "I'm going home." And they're like, no, you're coming with us. I'll have to find the video and send it to you too, because you could. There's really no reason. And then so the guy goes, okay, grabs her arm, puts her in the ground.
Okay.
Like, she is not going to resist you really that much. Like a punch from her, you're probably going to, you're not going to like.
Right.
She's not any
slams her on the ground.
Kind of grabbed her so he's on her left from behind and kind of arm barred her down.
Okay.
So she goes down, she goes, she's in pain.
Right.
"I'm going home. He goes, no, you're not. And then just it kind of handles her, and it almost looked like he was going to twist her arms into a pretzel. It was so rough. And then handcuffed her, and you hear one of the other officers with him and goes, hey, like I guess he was getting a little rough. And then the camera cuts, so the footage cuts to her, like they got her up at the squad car, like some SUV or something, and she's like in pain, and they're like trying to figure out what's going on with her and stuff. And you hear the officers talking to each other. Yeah, a little rough. Yeah, got some dirt on her. Oh, okay. What's that on you? Is that blood? Yeah, not mine. Okay. And then you see in one part also the officer is like has her arm like kind of back like this.
Yeah.
It's still handcuffed to the other hand.
Uh-huh.
And then you can hear the video. So there's some text that pops up because it's like a news video, and it says, "And this is at the point."
Oh, have we lost you, Amos?
That was weird.
You kind of froze for a second there.
What did you hear last?
So she had her arm in a weird position, and then the camera cut, and you hear.
Oh yeah, so it's the there's some text because I think it was like an edited video, news footage and stuff. So it
right
point where the officer dislocated her shoulder.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you see in the video, you can see he's got her arm like in that awkward position, and then you just hear. It's very subtle. You can almost hear and see it, and you can see her reaction changes. You just hear a pop,
right,
and you hear her just kind of go slump, like
right,
painful.
That hurts like hell.
You're 72. Your bones are not what they used to be, so that's gonna It was later on found they took her back to jail and put her in a holding cell for 6 hours with no medical attention until 2.5 hours in, where they had basically found out that her shoulder was dislocated and her humerus broke.
Right.
The officer broke her humerus, so there is a lawyer that has already stepped in to represent her to sue the police department, which, funny enough, that lawyer is also representing another case suing the exact same police department.
Okay.
For brutality. So, yeah, I mean, and say what you want. I mean, brutality is brutality, but it's just the big reasons why I'm kind of seeing this is like, okay, this is why the news isn't really talking about it. Old lady, white lady, small town, not in a city. There's all these things that basically there's no narrative to push.
Correct.
Which is sad. Like, it's brutality. This is police doing some pretty hard. You're not going to really argue much out of any. Like, the only justification would probably, okay, if he just handcuffed her quick, just took her away. Yeah, it's an old lady and such, but okay, he didn't really hurt her. Like, the only thing that's really going to hurt is just the handcuffs on her. But the handling, the dislocating your shoulder, breaking her humerus, and all this stuff. Also, that employee at Walmart better get talked to as well. Like, no, just because apparently this lady's been to that Walmart before too. So you think someone would know, but it was just weird. And what was the other thing? Yeah, just the fact that it's not fitting a narrative, and you just don't hear about it.
Yeah, gets no coverage. I mean, I did see it somewhere, probably a headline on one of these pieces. I didn't see the video. I don't know much about it. Yeah, I think that's terrible. Hopefully, justice will kind of be sorted out with that. Yeah. I mean, these things do happen. But then what you don't hear about is like the thousands of interactions that actually go well. You don't actually hear about.
Well, yeah, good news doesn't
sell.
Car
back, and yeah, good news doesn't sell, right? So, I mean, like Bill Maher actually came out with a very interesting set recently, bitching about the kind of the American liberals and how they, if you want to rag on conservatives and be like, oh yeah, science deniers and whatever, the left is just as guilty. And he asked them, like, how many black people are gunned down in the United States? And people were thinking like thousands. Oh fuck yeah, man! And I mean, the police just going around with Tommy guns and just mowing them down.
Yeah.
No, it's like 16 people, and they're like far more white people have been killed by cops than black people.
Yeah.
Right. So he has to kind of point out, is like, no, liberals, calm it. Y'all are not even living in reality. The other thing is like, how many, of course, they're totally petrified with the coof. It's like, how likely is it that you're going to be hospitalized by the coof? And, you know, all these liberals are like, oh yeah, at least 80% chance, man. Man, you get this, you're going to die, bitch. You know, like this is the end of the world. And he's like, no, it's like 1 to 5%, depending on your age. You know, it's like, you know, if you want to rag on the conservatives for believing, you know, QAnon kind of bullshit, fine, that's fine. But own your own bullshit. Like own the blue anon shit where you guys just don't have a clue what's really going on.
By the way, I just remember the one point I was going to add to that lady who got arrested. Do you know how much she was apparently stolen?
It's like $13 or something.
$13.88.
Yeah, it was minuscule. Yeah, there's a lot of fault to go around there. If I was the lawyer, I'd probably go after Walmart for, you know, if she's been there regularly.
Walmart and the police.
Yeah, they should know that this lady is infaired, and they should have somebody to kind of deal with her. So anyway, I don't know enough about it, but if I was the lawyer and that's the case, I would go after all of them.
For all the shenanigans that Walmart deals with, you'd think they'd be able to handle this a little more professionally.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to state, but yeah, I would agree with you.
Because I watched the video and it's, you know, obviously it's disheartening, but I'm just like, what? Like, I mean, I'm just thinking the Walmart.
I mean, you have to remember they have like elderly crack addicts that go into Walmart and do shit as well, right? They do have granny drug people who attack the police. You know, I mean, we are coming from it from the point of hindsight. Remember, they didn't know she had dementia. They didn't know who they're dealing with. They did not know all the information we have now. So not giving it a pass, but I'm just saying it's a lot easier for us looking out after the fact and be like, okay, well, this is what's going on.
You know, but it was also the handling after she's been cuffed. So once you're really cuffed, you go to the back of the vehicle, you're done. But it was like they kept pinning her against the vehicle, and it was just like you can probably already tell from, I mean, so he initially manhandles her and stuff.
Yeah.
I think you could probably already figure out she's not a very strong woman. Like if she was on crack or something, she probably would you get that drug superhuman strength, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we already know that wasn't the case. So it's like, what are you even doing then? It's like you're throwing around what is essentially compared to you relative to your strength, a ragdoll at this point.
Yeah.
Like this is a very fragile person.
He might be a bad cop. He might be one of those people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
And now that you know that the lawyer is also representing someone in another case against the same police department, it's like, oh, that department's got problems.
Yeah. I mean, the issue is that is all that's said. And the anti-cop narrative is so prevalent. People are just anti-cop. And that's not a very healthy place for society.
Oh no, I understand. But instead of addressing instead of trying to not attack, but go against the anti-cop, maybe try to understand and see why those are there. Like really look at address all these cases, but
on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, but again, the media doesn't bring about all you don't have the police accountability mainstream media. You have
correct
the anti-cop police, the anti-cop racism narrative media that cherry picks at the stories they want to address versus the ones they don't.
Because some cop got gunned down after Maxine Waters did her speech. Somebody did a drive-by either to the National Guard or somebody else in Minneapolis. These things do happen. You incite these people, they're going to come out and things happen.
And this is the problem is. And then you have the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, who said this was just a solution. This wasn't justice.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It was basically saying we solved this one thing, but we don't have justice.
Yeah. AOC and Obama kind of chimed in the same thing.
And I was like,
oh, no. Did you hear Nancy Pelosi, though?
What did she say?
Oh, thank God the George Floyd died so we can have
sacrifice
justice.
his life.
Yeah, some shit like that.
And the people are like,
what
no.
the fuck?
And that brings out the whole thing is
narrative. Never let a good tragedy
reasonable
go to waste.
People who are following this, whether on either side of it, are still understanding no one is saying, like, no one wanted anyone to die in the first place, and no one wants any of this violence to play out. But there has to be some reasonable view of the whole thing. Like I said, I believe Chauvin has consequence. He has to face consequences. But I'm not going to pin him like he was, the absolute devil of a person that deserved every like. There are people that are saying, that are like just eating up the idea of, he's going to get so screwed in prison.
Yeah. Well, he's probably not going to make it to prison, so.
Well, I mean, depending on how the appeal goes,
depending on the appeal.
But then they're saying like he would basically be as much of not a flight risk, like a liability in a prison as a child molester, because cops and child molesters are like the most hated people in a prison.
They get shanked in prison, so they usually put them in like isolation units.
But what sucks is basically the entire jail sentence is 23 hours in isolation with an hour of yard time or whatever they call it, for maybe that is if you can survive it,
it's complicated. I don't think he's going that way. There's too much that went wrong with this case. My biggest concern is the miscarriage of the verdict in terms of the law. If the law was not really kept, the state didn't prove their point, and people are just dishing out verdicts based on the feeling of threat. That's a serious problem. In fact, we had a case out here recently. A bunch of Extinction Rebellion, green leftist terrorists started smashing up, I think, HSBC, one of the banks out here in the city of London. And they were there. I mean, it was pretty pathetic. They were there with hammers and stuff. And there's a bunch of women who never used a hammer in their life. But they did smash the glass and they broke up a couple windows and whatever. And they sat there and, we've got, 6 minutes before the earth fries or whatever the fucking message is. End up in court. The judge says what you did is illegal. The damages were something like £500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And the jury completely acquit them and said, well, what they did was wrong, but they did it for the right reason. No, that is the end of the rule of law. Yeah. And what did we have before the rule of law? It was the rule of the stick. Whoever had the biggest stick got justice. And that's what we're coming into. And right now, Antifa, BLM types have the biggest stick. They're threatening to burn down the city. That's how they get justice. Yeah. So the end of the rule of law would be a huge tragedy for everybody, because then you really don't have justice. You just have, you have mob justice at that point.
All right. I'm surprised.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah, bitches.
Well, we, of course, do appreciate everyone joining us. Now, again, we do apologize for the lateness of the show today. That is all Brook's fault.
My fault. Take full responsibility.
No, we love Brook. So, if you, of course, do enjoy the show, we do encourage you to check out our previous episodes. Check us out on all your podcasting platforms. But if you want to support the show directly or indirectly, depending upon which one you do, you could buy Tactical Soap. Go to tacticalsoap.com. Use coupon code 10KRUM to get 10% off. That supports the show and keep your balls clean. Or go to subscribestar.com/shitload-preachers, where you can support the show directly for as little as $1 or $5. I highly recommend the $5 a month, not just because it's more money, but because there's more content. We do have a Discord server if you subscribe for, the $1 a month, which, let's see. It is still just Brook and myself in there.
Nobody wants to talk to us.
Nobody wants to talk to us. I'm on Discord all the freaking time. So,
I'm there. I don't use it, but I have it open.
It's always open. But
yeah.
So we do appreciate everyone, of course, joining us on the show. We will be on next. Now, quick little thing. Tomorrow night, on the Masculine Geek channel, I will be joining Vince, TJ, Drew Bay, Rollo Tomasi, and a new guy, Robert Korsland, and myself will be playing D&D.
Awesome. Make sure and put a link in the description below this episode so people can follow up and watch that.
Yes. I will be playing
No, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. You know.
Well, they already know. It's already posted.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm playing an elf wizard. So I don't know how we're still trying to figure out, Rollo being Rollo, like we're trying to figure out like where we're fitting in. Are we just going to show up and then two random figures appear? No, like we're trying to figure this out.
Who's the dungeon master?
Rollo.
Rollo's interesting. Tell him I said hi.
Yeah, so it's Rothus the elven wizard with Tancred the thief, which is the other guy, Robert, who's joining us. And so we had a little bit of a stream on Friday night where Vince, Robert, and myself had a little chat. We were gonna have Rollo on to talk about stuff, but he has some personal stuff to take care of. So we talked a little bit about it, talking about D&D stuff. But yeah, I will be part of that campaign now. Because they lost a few players, so they needed more to replenish. So yeah.
Cool.
Anyways,
cool.
That will be on tomorrow. And yeah, so
awesome.
Thanks everyone, of course, for joining us. Do tune into previous episodes as well as me being on Masculine Geek tomorrow. And we will see everyone next week.
Thanks for watching, guys.